Welcome back. In this video, we put down all the flooring and put up all the paneling. It really starts to transform the bathroom into a cozy space rather than just a wooden box. I also wanted to mention that you should go to all the hardware stores around you. I went to Lowe's and Home Depot just to see what offerings they have for the peel and stick so you can mix and match so it best suits your needs for your trailer. So I threw these back in so we could see that fits just as we hoped, and so does this. And if I get in, there's my knee fitting underneath here, so having a skinny cabinet but a wide top is all good. Got plenty of room. So for the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to put the flooring, and then we're sort of going to panel the wall. And so what we got is peel and stick flooring, so that'll be on the floor. This will be on the wall. Now, this looks a lot more blue in the video than it does in real life. But so we're going to panel the wall with these. So there's a few reasons we went with the peel and stick. One reason is that it is flexible. As we're driving down the road, the trailer's going to, bend and flex, and it's going to do what a trailer does. The other reason is this is incredibly durable. We put this in our kids' room, and they have not been able to destroy it, even though they've tried. So that is part of the reason we're using this. If we used hard tile, we'd have to worry about like the trailer bending and flexing, and grout cracking, tiles cracking. This is your best method for a trailer. Not to mention it's really skinny. You're not going to lose any room from mortar or just how thick tongue and groove planks are. Now, you probably could put real wood on the walls if you wanted to. We just find this to be easier, but we're not going to rely just on the adhesive back. We're going to use some Ultimate Heavy Duty Gorilla contact adhesive, whatever this is. But if you've ever laid this stuff down before, you'll notice how thick it is and how it wears out your hand. So got myself a new little toy, which is basically a DeWalt caulking gun. So you're gonna put that little bad boy in there, and then you just pull the trigger and you just let it rip. So I'm really excited about that, to not wear my hand out. But so basically, I'm gonna sand the floor, make sure it's all nice and level. I'm gonna take out that guy. We're gonna lay down the flooring, cut what we need to cut, and then from that point we're gonna do the wall. I might do this part of the wall first, then that part. Oh, and then the other reason is over here. So this wall curves to over there. So look at that. That was the other reason for using the peel and stick. It can completely curve with the wall. So I will put in some spacers right here, because this part is higher than this part, and you run into a situation like this where that's lower and then this is higher. So I will be putting little wood spacers that I've already cut. So yeah, let's get started. We just got the floor all sanded. I took out that bracket right there. The bracket was actually pretty easy to take out. I was worried it was going to be painted on. So we just sanded it to make sure everything was relatively flat, and just to give the adhesive just a little bit to bite onto. We've already swept it, but make sure you just go the extra mile. Now we're going to spray it down with some alcohol and wipe it down again, just to make sure all the dust isn't there, because if there's dust, the glue is going to stick to the dust because it's in between the panel and the floor. So all right, so if we look at the bottom of the paper towel now, see all of that? That's what the adhesive would have stuck to. So as clean as you can make it, the better it's going to stick. All right, now that's all been thoroughly cleaned. Now it's time to start thinking about how we're going to lay out these tiles. one thing I wanted you to think about was, you see that right there? You know, because the way we cut this room, it's never going to be perfect. You know, like we didn't cut it with these in mind of a 1 foot by 1 foot square. So obviously it's a little bit over. And what I wanted you to think about was, you could push these all the way back and then have that up here, but that's a little unsightly. The cabinet's going to be right there, and then it'll just be that little open spot, but it'll be mostly blocked by the toilet. So what I want you to think about is put all the full tiles up front, so the eye, you know, sort of plays tricks on it, and then it makes it look aesthetically better. Okay, we're going to bring you in on the first one. So we're deciding to go back a little bit because we're going to put a transition here anyways. And if we come all the way up to here, we're going to have to cut out a notch piece right here, and it's something you wouldn't even notice anyways underneath our transition. So no point in making more work for ourselves. So basically, you're going to peel that off. And then here's where we got the new tool. So let's try it out. Oh, there it goes. Wow, this is so much easier. If you've ever tried to do these by hand, and you see it back out there, it has an anti-drip feature. I don't know how well that actually works, because it's still kind of going a little bit. But what you could do is, the piece you peeled off the back of the sticky, you could just set that underneath it so that if it does drip, it drips on that. All right, so now we just turn that over, and then I'm lining this up to our wall into right there. And now I'm just sticking her in. They do sell rollers that you could get, or you can just press down really hard. All right, bringing you back in. So these are all glued down. And I did trim up right here a little bit to get it to fit, but I also used the fact that it would go underneath this as to my advantage, so I didn't have to cut that. So basically, all the full-size panels are in. Now, back there and right here is everything that needs to be trimmed. So when you first walk in, all you see is big tiles, which is what I was referring to before. And back there, so the cabinet will be right there, the toilet will be right there. So realistically, it'll only be about right there to there that you would notice smaller tiles. But these do sort of blend together a little bit. Also, what we learned with the DeWalt adhesive gun, caulking gun, is you need to have these the tips cut really big, and then the tip inside of here that you unscrew this for, you need to cut them really big, because otherwise when this plunger is coming down, it creates so much force that the adhesive starts to go around the plunger, and we just spent about 20 or 30 minutes cleaning up inside of here. So it does make it easier in one aspect to have thin adhesive going down, because then it just kind of lays flatter. But as you'll see in the time lapse, that's why we had Melissa standing on top of it to smush it down, because we had to run a much thicker bead so that we don't have to keep cleaning this. But otherwise, this thing works exceptionally well. You can get the simple, cheaper handheld ones. When we did our kids' room, our hand was really hurting after that, because this is pretty hard to squeeze out. So just a little pro tip there, make sure you cut the tips pretty big, and then just have somebody stand on the tiles as you squeeze them in. So, but now it's time to start measuring and cutting each one of those, and then each one of those. I'm not really looking forward to over here, because not only it's not going to be a square cut, you know what I mean? There's an angle going like that the whole way. So maybe that first one we can get away with it, but then it's going to be an angle all the way down to here. So those are going to be a little bit more complicated, but everything else looks pretty good. So, okay, so what we were doing with over here was we basically had to make paper templates because of the curve of this, and we still wanted everything to fit up square on this side, but curved on that side. So what we've done is basically took and made a paper template that fits in there perfectly, and then outlined it on here, and then we have these cardboard shears that seem to work really well cutting it. So we're just cutting them out. You can score it and with a razor blade and then bend it and it'll just pop. But this is a curved line here, so it won't break on a curve like that. So then what we do is it's now close, and then you just see where it's hitting. And it's hitting basically right here, so then I just go back with the shears and trim it up until it fits. All right, the floor is all done. This actually fits a lot better than I thought it would. It's kind of hard to tell on the camera, but there's a big swoop in the floor because the outside of the trailer is round. So pretty excited about that. Now, right here, there is a little bit of a gap, but we're putting a sill plate or threshold right here, an aluminum one, so this will be covered up, so it doesn't necessarily matter. We went through about 2.5 tubs of the Gorilla Ultimate adhesive stuff, so just keep that in mind. We only bought 5. I think we're going to need to buy about another 3 or 4 more to do the walls. But our next step is to start on this wall, and then that wall, and then this wall with the curve in it. All right, now we're going to start on the paneling, but before I do that, I wanted to cut all the pieces of wood to go in here first, get them all screwed and glued in, so then that way when I'm over here with the paneling, I don't have to stop. I'm going to put one in here too, just so when you're here, you're not gonna have like a weird soft spot right there. So let's get cutting. Okay, so here's the piece of plywood I found. I'm basically gonna be cutting out 2 1/4 inch strips out of this whole thing because we're also gonna need them for our other things. So I'm just gonna chop out the whole thing, just knock it out really quick. Okay, cut maybe about half the board. I think this is gonna be plenty for what we're needing, at least right now. So I'm gonna leave this in case we need bigger pieces for something else. And now I'm gonna get started gluing and screwing those to where I need them. All right, got all those cut and installed. I did use some scraps down here because I didn't want to strip some more pieces. And realistically, nobody's gonna see any of this because the paneling is gonna go over it. I was just trying to bring up this part equal to that part, and the gaps in between, the adhesive will just lay it on thick and it'll squish in between. You shouldn't be able to feel it at all. We did this part too on the inside of the door. So I think we're gonna lay down a few panels. All right, so we got this wall done to the point up here. So as you can see, this slopes down. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna take your piece, you're gonna butt it up where it should be, and then as you can see right there, I marked out on Sharpie, or in Sharpie, what I'm gonna need to notch out. And I'm just sort of guessing at the amount, and it's better to sneak up on it. Otherwise you're gonna scrap this piece out. So just bringing you in to show you what we actually did. So I just took Sharpie and just marked around. This piece is gonna be an even bigger cut, but it's what we're gonna do to make it look good. So this wall's done, that wall's done. Now we're gonna be working on the curved part of the wall. All right, so here's basically what we're gonna be doing is, see how that bends around that really nicely? So I think we're gonna stack all of these together, but we're gonna tape them together because otherwise one could be back further, one could be out further, it's going to be not as symmetrical. We think it'd be stronger if all of these were attached together. We also just bought a heat gun, so we'll maybe heat this up and it'll probably relax a little bit. So we're going to try that. So we're going to peel off the backs and we're going to attach them with this Gorilla. It's basically duct tape, it's just extra wide. And no, this video is not sponsored by Gorilla. We just keep seeming to find products that they have that work for us. So we're going to time lapse this and show you what we do. All right, so we got them all taped in the center. So as we were doing it, I was pulling them with my fingers and then making sure on the edge right here they were flush. If they're all made the same way, they should all be equally as flush on the other side. Now we're probably gonna tape the rest of this. Either we're gonna run strips up and down or back and forth. See, basically the thing we didn't want was for the two pieces to be at different angles, and depending on how we were doing it before, it was all going on a flat surface. Now they're bending around a radius, and if one bends more, or if something's a little bit higher, I'd rather it affect everything. That way everything looks seamless. So but you'll be able to see in about a couple of seconds because we'll have it up. Okay, she's all taped up. So the reason we stuck the tape in the middle, it was just easier to deal with a smaller piece of tape. This Gorilla Tape is very difficult to deal with in a good way. Like, it's very sticky, it's thick, and it's perfect for this, which I would consider sort of an odd heavy-duty type application. So then we just came and did everything else while we were here because I want all these pieces to look like it's a solid wall and to be completely lined up, and it pretty much is going to accomplish that. So now we're going to put it in, sort of just test fit it, make sure everything looks good. All right, so one more thing to think about. This wall and that wall, we have access to it from behind. So if we're putting anything, light fixtures, light switches, we can access it from behind. This wall and this wall, we're obviously not gonna be able to access it from behind, and the composting toilet takes power. So it's 15 inches from the ground up where the power plug-in comes. So I'm gonna measure that out, drill a hole in the panel that we just taped together, and then we're putting also a light up there. So the power from the toilet, I'm gonna have it tie into the light and then go to the back over there. So just, that's what we're up to. Okay, so now it's very important to make sure you know which side is gonna be towards the door and which side is gonna be wrapping around. So I measured 15 inches up, 17 inches over, and that puts the hole for the toilet, for the power, exactly right there. So that's where I'm gonna drill the hole. So for the toilet seat power, I put a bunch of heat shrink on the line so that it would stay more rigid. Because I was concerned about it just breaking. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now that that's fed through, probably what I'll do is just tape it up so that when we put it in, I have access to the wires. Okay, so you saw us get the hole drilled. We put the wire through. We put another loose piece of tape up here, ready to receive the next board. And that is on there with some masking tape. And then inside the trailer, I routed the main wire right here for the light. Light's probably gonna be up here somewhere. I just, just rough routing it, routed it behind this. It goes behind here and it goes behind the wall. Kind of thinking the battery might be down in here somewhere on the other side of the wall. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get that piece. We're probably gonna put a bunch of that Gorilla adhesive everywhere right here. And then we're gonna wedge it in. We're gonna put a board right here with clamps. And then we're gonna put small pieces of wood right here, like cleats in a way. And we're gonna push it, screw them in, and then try to let that thing cure. I think we'll hit this with the heat gun to try to help it relax. but let's see. Okay, we got the panel in. These are the cleats that we put in. We put some of the backing that came from these boards on there to hope so that these don't stick. We're gonna leave this for 24 hours to let all this set up. I drilled a hole for a lamp, and then this is for the toilet. I'm gonna tee into this up here. I'll probably pull that down, but I'll tee into there. And then, so that wire obviously goes the other side. We'll finish this part up tomorrow after this cures. So basically I have clamps and one of the 2x3s right here holding it in. And that's pretty much it. There's the wire coming out for the toilet. So it looks like a nice curved wall matching the trailer. So that's pretty cool. All of this is done-ish. So it's just that little part that we'll finish up tomorrow. We'll have the piece, thinking about stripping a thin piece up here so that it blocks that in, and then I have some ideas for trim going around this so that you don't see anything right here, because there's obviously a big gap between the two. So yeah, see you tomorrow. It's the next day. We're gonna unscrew these cleats. We're gonna take off the clamps, and hopefully the wall stays up. We were kind of thinking overnight that we need to connect this wire into the main power wire. That's also plugging into the lamp before we start buttoning this up. And we were thinking about the top panel up here, maybe having it so it's screwed in instead of adhesive in, so that it can be removed in case we need to service this wire. So we're gonna take this off and we'll bring you back. Everything came off smoothly. The panels are still there, all nice and bent around. I guess maybe it's hard to see in the camera, but it's a nice smooth bend there. I think we're gonna put these panels going up, and we staggered all of these, so a seam there, longer piece, seam over there. But trying to stagger these in the middle of this radius, it may not have looked that good, and it may have been kind of a nightmare. Plus, when you walk in, your eye just is kind of drawn to this, and you don't really see this until you're in here. We could have done it, and we could have just gambled, but it could have been also a disaster. So we went the way that we knew it would work. So I think we're gonna do those panels, and then the adhesive, the tape that's on the back of these, we use that to insulate the cleats so that they didn't stick, and it worked perfect. All right, so we never really showed you how we're trimming these up. So first thing we do is we make sure that this piece doesn't match any of the pieces around it, because you do get duplicate designs of the wood grain. We push it up against the wall. It's pushed really hard up against that side. She levels it out, makes sure it's where it's supposed to be, and then she marks it with a Sharpie, just a little dot of where it needs to be cut. And then we bring it over here, and then I use a speed square. The speed square hangs out, so you couldn't really do it right here. You have to hang it over the edge, and I'm using the trailer, but you could use the edge of a table. It needs to be square. Otherwise it's not gonna butt up to the next one very well. I take a really sharp utility knife and I score it while pushing against the speed square. And then basically all you were doing was scoring it, and that's it. It breaks free. And now I can take this other side, which is already square, and you can see it butts up perfectly. So basically, this is a must-have, and you're pushing it this way as hard as you can while holding it down, and then scoring across it. And you're pushing against this the whole time. So then the next thing we do is we take the piece and then make sure it is still good, lined up, tight fit, which it is. And now we glue it. All right, so this is the power for the light we're gonna put right here. This is the power for the toilet. It has a tiny little fan that comes in. So basically I'm using these little T's right here. I'll put a picture of the package right here, and we're gonna try to put as many links in the description to Amazon so that you can see everything that we bought. But basically, this little feller just bridges the connection so it goes down. It's one of the easier things to use, but you don't need to strip any of the wire, so have that off. Push that guy on. Right there. Obviously you need to get these for the right size wire you're using. And then that is a little bit smaller, but as I'm closing this and dropping things, I'm making sure that I'm pushing the black wire in. Okay, it clicked again, but you'll see the part of the plastic right there that has like a pressure stress mark. That's where the guillotine is coming, and I recommend using some pliers to further crush that. You can kind of feel it go through, and now it's through, and you can give it a little bit of a tug, not too hard, just a little bit of a tug. And then I've been using the a voltmeter to test to make sure that it's getting signal through. So basically I'm putting it here and I'm putting it there to test to make sure. All right, so that means it's getting current through. So that means our connection's good. So now I don't need to worry about this. And the panel we're putting up here is just gonna be screwed in, not glued. So if I ever need to service this or fish a new cable through, I can. Okay, so we got up to this part. Now, these pieces could be some of the more complicated because of this width right here. And then right here, because this is not, this is pretty small compared to how wide these are. So I'm kind of concerned that we're gonna have to cut a piece lengthwise. Also, we put masking tape right here because this edge of the aluminum felt pretty sharp, and don't underestimate a wire vibrating against that as you're driving down the road, not cutting through the wire. So what we're gonna do is we're now gonna focus on this piece. You'll see that we put a piece vertically because the wood that we got right here wasn't quite thick enough. And if we put a piece vertically and then have these go over it, it's pretty flush. So currently we're gonna do this piece first and see where it lands, and then we're gonna focus on this piece, and then a piece that starts right about here and goes to there, just so you don't see any of that, and it really finishes it. But then the paneling might be done at that point. When I was looking at the wiring here, I had the wiring going up like this, and I just assumed I was gonna go around and whatever. So I pulled the wiring back out, I redid these, and then I used a really cool oscillating tool. If you don't have one of these, you need to get an oscillating tool. It makes these jobs so easy. So I was able to trim that down so that the wire goes through here, and then I put a little ramp right there where the wire is gonna go right there and not affect this panel at all. And then I masking taped all this down. The wire's still gonna go back over here. It's still gonna be routed the same. And we also cut the piece that's gonna go right there. So basically all we did was I used the oscillating tool to cut that, and then we put a straight edge right there and just snapped it free like we were doing everything else. And it plugs right in. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a tiny piece of the Gorilla Tape on the other side right here just to hold it as we go through. I think we're gonna pull this wire through so it's out of our way, and then right here, we're probably gonna put a screw and a screw, and then right here, a screw and a screw, so that if we need to access this, we have the ability without having to break apart the whole wall. Because once this adhesive sets, I think it's gonna be like you might as well just buy a new trailer at that point instead of trying to fix that wiring. So we're gonna do this just to try to future-proof it so that we know that we can fix it in the future if we ever have a problem. All right, we got that piece in, we got this piece in. We did put a piece of the Gorilla Tape right here just to add some rigidity to it. So it's just that one screw and that one screw holding that one in and the tape. But they do stick out, so we have a brown and a black Sharpie that I'm going to just try to make it so it's not as noticeable. Looks like I maybe should do the black Sharpie and then do the brown over it. Kind of going it over with the brown right now. It's adding a little bit of a tinge to it. I don't know, as long as they're just not sticking out quite how they were, I think that that's a win. Really jamming that Sharpie where the Phillips screw goes to get that chrome nickel look out of there. Yeah, that one did it, so let me do it again to this one. So I think those look better than bright silver, so that's pretty good. We'll probably leave these clamps on overnight for that to cure. This is where a lamp is gonna go. We did route that wire through the other side. You can still kind of see it right there, but as long as it's nice and loose. This is the last piece we need to hang, so we're gonna cut that. Basically, all we're doing is we're measuring from here to there, and we're measuring from here to here, and then the length. Everything on this trailer has been a little bit wonky, so we're just making sure that the dimension from here to here and here to here is the same. But we'll cut that, and then we're just gluing that in, and we'll clamp it, and all the panels have been hung. All right, currently what we're gonna do is we're gonna silicone all the edges all the way up, all the way down. We got some brown silicone, so we're just gonna silicone all of that. Okay, now that the paneling in here is finished, we had some extra paneling left over, so we figured we would panel the door. So that's what we're gonna do now. I took off the locking mechanism, so we'll panel and then we'll re-drill these holes and then put the locking mechanism back on. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, so we gave this a day to cure up. Our clamps, as you can see, didn't go in far enough, so we used the next best thing, which was some masking tape, just to hold everything into position. Now we have to drill these holes for the latch, and then we have a handle. Well, actually we have two handles that we bought at Lowe's. This one we're gonna put somewhere up in here. And then got this one because I was thinking that the bathroom's gonna need some kind of a latch when you're inside, but when you're driving down the road, it wouldn't be a good idea if that latch somehow vibrated itself and locked the door, because there would be no way into the bathroom. So we're gonna think about how to mount that, because we don't have a lot of width here for the screw lengths. I think the screws that came with this handle should be fine. The screws that came with this one are extremely long. So I think I might just pre-drill this and maybe cut those in half, and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, got those drilled, got all the masking tape off. So basically what I did was I just ran a drill through this side, and then I had a scrap piece of wood over here, just pressing through very carefully, just let the drill do the work to pop those through. Now, I'm gonna go inside and try to determine where we think we want this handle at, because we're a lot higher up in here. So I'm kind of feeling in this area, and then this locking mechanism above it. That seems to make sense. So you're pulling with this arm and then locking it with this arm. And the cool thing about this, I don't think I explained it, is it has a spring mechanism. So as we're driving down the road, this is sitting there rattling and has no possibility of locking on its own. So it's a pretty clutch find. I was wondering what I was going to do about this because everything else is just sort of like a hotel slide lock or something like that. So I'm pretty happy that we found this. So now we're just going to line that up, drill this, and then put in this. Okay, so we're moving on to the locking mechanism, and I'm gonna put this up in here somewhere, probably right to the edge. These screws, on the other hand, are too long. They would end up poking through the outside, and can't have that. So right now I'm just gonna chop them down, and I'll probably pre-drill the holes, so I won't need to necessarily sharpen it. So I'm gonna do that now. All right, I got them all cut. That's the original. So probably what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this up here, and then I'm gonna Sharpie one of the holes, screw that in, and then make sure it's exactly, you know, nice and squared up to the door. And that's where we're gonna go. Got it all screwed in. Best part, nothing poking out there. So feels pretty on there. I did take it apart. It did come with an Allen wrench, and there's the collar, goes through there. I think it's so you could flip the handle either way. So now I'm gonna put it back on, and then think about where I gotta drill the hole right here. All right. Okay, put it back together. So basically, have it so the handle's down. You push it over, lift it up, and then it locks. So what to do now is you gotta pull it where you want it. Like, if you want it locked right there with like a big gap in the door, you'd have to drill the hole right there. But I wouldn't pull it so tight that nobody else can do it. I would keep it snug, and that's where I would Sharpie and then drill the hole right there and then try it out. All right, so I just pretty much traced around the bolt. It's kind of hard to film and do it all at the same time, but if I push the bolt out, that's where I just traced around that. So in the center of that right there, I'm gonna drill. I may run into an issue of it wanting to blow out the side, so we're gonna have to take it easy. Got the hole all drilled. Now what I did was I had to get a small drill and a center punch. I drilled it, and then I drilled it, and then when it was breaking out, I kind of held the drill going this way, and then it cut through, and then I had to work the drill around a bunch. But now as we close it, you can see that, so it's this screw right here that locates in that. So you push it over, and then there you go, you're now in, and then push that, fold it down, and now you're out, and now close it. So basically that screw is locating in that groove and locks itself. So when we're driving down the highway, this is what I was concerned about. This door will be like this, vibrating. This thing will be going like this, vibrating. So we might need to put something right here so that it doesn't, you know, bang that up. But what I didn't want was we're going down the highway and then this thing just works itself in through vibrations, which it could. So that spring will keep it out. So I think we're on to the next project. Thanks for watching this video. In the next episode, we hang all the folding shelves. We have to build a full structure to support the ones on the sides. It's pretty involved. It doesn't seem like it, but it actually is pretty involved because I wanted to keep as much space inside the trailer as possible. So please stay tuned for that. We got some parts on order for the bathroom, but we really look forward to finishing that, and we'll finish that in either the next episode or the episode after that. But please stay tuned, like, share, and subscribe.
chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.